Yo guys, it's your boy Mikey. Today we're back with another one. We're talking about sacred geometry, or healing frequency schematics in church architecture and windows also. So let's just dive into this rabbit hole and possibly prove this is not made by like some dude chiseling on a fucking piece of glass. It's actually made by, some kind of ancient technology.
I've been seeing videos about cymatics and the different shapes and patterns that can be made with certain notes.
We are at Notre Dame, Paris.
So I asked Grok, what note or chord would it take to produce the pattern in the giant stained glass window inside Notre Dame Cathedral? The answer was a bass note of the old school A, 432 hertz, or
132 hertz is healing frequency, which is kind of crazy. Like, how would they know that if we believe in the supposed mainstream history?
E4, which is 329.63 hertz, and G4, 392 hertz. Basically, C major. Grok goes on to suggest Gregorian chant may have figured prominently in healing within the Notre Dame Cathedral. This really fascinates me. I love this type of thing.
You're telling me that they know all this shit and they're making windows based on axiomatic healing frequencies? Like, you gotta be kidding me. And they made it with just some dude has knowledge of it, if you believe in the mainstream. And they were making it with like chisels on a fucking piece of glass. Like, the mainstream is 100% on lies.
Hey there, science buffs. Ever wondered if there's a connection between the intricate designs of Gothic cathedral windows and the science of sound? Buckle up, because we're diving into the fascinating world of cymatics. So what exactly is cymatics? It's the study of visible sound and vibration. Imagine this. You take a metal plate, sprinkle some sand on it, and then use a tone generator to produce sound waves. Different frequencies produce different patterns. As the frequency changes, the sound morphs into various symmetrical patterns. Pretty cool, right? These patterns are the result of sound waves interacting with the medium, causing it to move and settle into shapes that are both geometric and mesmerizing. Now let's talk about those stunning cathedral windows. Many Gothic cathedrals feature intricate symmetrical designs. Here's the thing. These designs look strikingly similar to the patterns formed by cymatic phenomena. Coincidence? Maybe. But it's more likely that the artisans who created these windows were inspired by the natural patterns they observed, possibly even those created by sound waves in different materials.
No, I don't think they're inspired by natural patterns. I think they have some kind of technology. They can make a replica of it as an exact.
Frequencies such as 432 Hz or solfeggio frequencies may produce healing properties. The connection here lies in the universal principles of geometry and symmetry. Just as sound waves can create beautiful, harmonious patterns, the designers of these windows aim to reflect a similar sense of order and beauty. The recurring use of geometric shapes and symmetric patterns in both cymatics and window designs suggests a deep, intrinsic connection between the physical laws of nature and human artistic expression. Want to see this in action? Try a simple experiment at home. Place a thin layer of sand on a metal plate and use a tone generator to produce various frequencies.
Like, why is no one actually talking about how it is actually built? Like,
Watch as the
that
sand
should be the
shifts
big elephant in the room. Like, why ain't nobody talking about that?
different patterns. You'll be amazed at how many of these resemble the intricate designs seen in cathedral windows. In summary, the correlation between cathedral window designs and cymatic patterns illustrates the intersection of art, science, and nature. It shows how the underlying principles of the universe can manifest in both human creations and natural phenomena. So next time you gaze at a Gothic cathedral window, remember,
Yeah, no one's talking about it, bro. Like,
differently in these spaces. Physically. Modern science offers a way to visualize how sound interacts with matter. This field is called cymatics. It shows us what vibration pattern forms. These forms change as the frequency changes. This is not artistic design, it is physics. Order emerges naturally from vibration. Across cultures, similar geometries appear again and again. Radial symmetry, repeating nodes, concentric rings. These patterns appear in cymatics. They also appear in sacred architecture. Rose windows are a striking example. They are circular, layered, highly symmetrical. Their structure mirrors harmonic patterns seen in cymatic experiments. Cathedrals amplify sound. Stone reflects vibration. Vaulted ceilings extend resonance. Domes focus acoustic energy. These effects are measurable. The primary musical instrument of the cathedral is the pipe organ. It is capable of producing extremely low frequencies, as well as a wide range of higher tones. Low frequencies are felt, not just heard. They move through air, through stone, and through the human body. Organ pipes do not produce a single tone. They generate harmonics. multiple frequencies sounding at once, filling the entire space. Many traditions describe the human experience in layered terms. Whether symbolic or physiological, sound has long been associated with emotional and mental elevation. The cathedral
Buddy, how did they even build this? Like, did they actually saw somatic patterns and they made exact replica of it? That's truly impossible. Have you seen the accuracy on those
does not merely
windows?
amplify sound. Complex patterns emerge from layered cathedral design. From sound to form. Structure follows resonance. Even in biology, similar patterns appear. DNA is not static. It vibrates, folds, and organizes
Yeah, this is another rabbit hole. Like, DNA has sacred geometry in it. It's crazy.
itself through rhythmic processes. Cymatics gives us a visual analogy for how vibration can shape form. Living systems also respond to frequency. Shape and structure emerge from oscillation. If vibration organizes matter, and architecture shapes vibration, what role did sound play in ancient design? Perhaps ancient builders did not describe physics the way we do today, but they understood harmony. Cymatics gives us a modern language to visualize it.
Bro, how they even make this shit, bro? Like,
Any other building? That shiver down your spine, that sense of awe, it's not just the soaring ceilings or the stained glass. Hidden within the stones and arches are ancient mathematical codes, sacred geometry, patterns designed to lift your mind and
bro, let me
spirit
search
toward the
how did
divine.
they even make this shit, bro? Like,
Today we'll decode the secret symbols woven into every stone and window, and reveal why these shapes have whispered to humanity for thousands of years. Sacred geometry is the ancient belief that certain shapes are the building blocks of all creation.
bro, you could not possibly make me believe they were chiseling this shit on a piece of glass. Like,
The circle, endless, with no beginning and no end, represents infinity, eternity, and divine perfection. The square, on the other hand, is about groundedness. The four corners symbolize the material world, stability, and balance. When cathedral architects square the circle, combining these two powerful symbols, they aren't just designing walls and domes. They are creating a sacred meeting point where heaven, circle, touches earth, square. Step inside, and you're literally walking into a geometry lesson designed to remind you of your place between the eternal and the earthly. Now imagine two perfect circles overlapping. In the space where they meet, an almond-shaped figure appears, the vesica piscis. This shape shows up everywhere in sacred art: doorways, halos, stained glass. The vesica piscis isn't just decoration. It was believed to be the blueprint of creation itself. The ratio hidden inside it, square root of 3 to 1, was revered as a divine signature, a mathematical fingerprint of God's creative act. Look at medieval art, and you'll see Christ and Mary framed inside this glowing almond. It symbolizes spiritual birth, divine union, and the mysterious overlap between human and divine. Every time you pass through a cathedral arch shaped like this, you're symbolically walking through the womb of creation. Another hidden code is the golden ratio, known as phi, approximately 1618. This number appears everywhere in nature: spiraling nautilus shells, the branching of trees, the seeds in a sunflower. Ancient builders believed this ratio revealed the mind of God in creation. So cathedral architects used it too. The soaring facades of Notre Dame, the intricate arches of Champs, the rose windows, many of them are designed with the golden ratio. When you walk into one of these sacred spaces and feel an almost mathematical harmony, that's not
especially the stairs, they're made with golden ratio, you know, perfect Fibonacci sequence and shit. It's crazy.
by accident. Your subconscious is recognizing divine order in the architecture. The building itself is whispering, you are standing inside the mathematics of heaven. The simplest sacred number in Christianity is 3, the Holy Trinity: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Geometrically, this becomes the equilateral triangle: 3 sides, 3 corners, perfect balance. But medieval artists went further. They often hid 3 interlocking circles called the Borromean rings in rose windows and mosaics. These rings are fascinating. Take away one circle and the entire structure falls apart. It's a visual metaphor for the Trinity, each person distinct yet inseparably united. Next time you see a rose window, look closely. Beneath the beauty, there's often a triangle or 3 circles, reminding you of the ultimate mystery of Christian faith. Not all sacred geometry is up in the stained glass. Sometimes it's right under your feet. Many cathedrals, like Chartres in France, feature labyrinths on their floors. At first glance, it looks like a maze, but it's not. There's only one winding path, guiding you inevitably toward the center. Walking the labyrinth was seen as a pilgrimage for those who couldn't travel to Jerusalem. The path, exactly 666 feet long, symbolized the earthly world. But as you slowly walked it,
Okay.
step by step, the journey transformed that worldly number into a spiritual act, leading you inward toward God. It's not
Isn't this just in the Kabbalah, like Ein Sof and shit, bro? Like, I don't know, bro.
a puzzle to solve. It's a prayer in motion. A reminder that your spiritual path may twist and turn.
Yeah, I know it's about the labyrinth and, you know, structure of the cosmos itself.
but it always leads you to the divine center. When you put it all together, a cathedral becomes much more than bricks and mortar. The circle, the square, the vesica piscis, the golden ratio, the triangle, the labyrinth, all of them are layered into the architecture. These symbols turn the building into a living diagram of the cosmos, a three-dimensional prayer carved in stone. Every step inside a cathedral, every glance up.
Bro, let me check this actually video that he talks about how it's actually built.
We're going to prove it using simple mathematics. Our investigation begins in Reims, France.
Well, I just
What if I told you that the great cathedrals of Europe were built by ghosts? Don't be so quick to laugh. Today, we're going to prove it using simple mathematics. Our investigation begins in Reims, France. Here stands one of the most incredible structures in the world, the Reims Cathedral. Its majesty staggers the imagination. Stone vaults soar towards the sky, and the facade is adorned with thousands of sculptures, each a masterpiece of art. It is a symphony in stone, frozen in time. The official story tells us that construction of this giant began in 1211, and even more astonishingly, we're told it was erected in just
Yeah, I don't buy that.
80 years. Now, let's pause for a moment. Imagine a world without electricity, without trucks and cranes, without computers for architectural calculations. A world where the only power source was horses, and the primary tools were a hammer and chisel.
Like, this is crazy, the mainstream narrative they want us to believe. Like, they tell me they built all this with some fucking chisel. To help us some donkeys and horses and shit. Like, that's it? Bro. The amount of lies that's embedded in mainstream history, it's crazy.
In such conditions, could you build a masterpiece like this in just 80 years? Or even in 2 centuries? The very question seems absurd.
And this conspiracy totally lies in like connection with the old totalitarian conspiracy.
We are asked to believe that the art of construction was perfected from the very beginning, while all other aspects of life remained primitive. But the mystery of Reims Cathedral is not an isolated case. It's merely the tip of the iceberg, the first thread in a web that leads to far stranger and more inconvenient patterns for historians. These colossal structures stand all over the world, like silent rebukes to our modern age. We, with our technological progress, supposedly 800 years ahead, look at them and cannot understand the most basic thing. How? How could people living in an era we call the Dark Ages achieve such mathematical precision and—
Yeah, the light the Dark Ages was something like, you know, traumatic period of no cultural or infrastructural evolution. It's a fucking lie. Like, everything around the history of Dark Ages, they're not telling the truth about it, and the mainstream is covering up. So Dark Ages is not a lie, because how does Dark Ages lead to Renaissance? Like, that's so stupid. People actually believe the lie. Dark Ages was like a dark period of time. They want to hide something. That's what they denote the name Dark Ages and call it something like dark. Very bad time in Europe. Like, those are just lies, but in the mainstream, it's so obvious at this point.
engineering perfection. Every stone is fitted with flawless accuracy, every vault calculated to withstand immense pressure for centuries. This requires not just skill, but profound knowledge of geometry, physics, and material strength. Disciplines that, we are assured, were in their infancy at the time. We are told stories of primitive people writing with quills by candlelight, living in cold huts and fighting with swords. Yet somehow, in a parallel reality, they were erecting buildings whose complexity challenges even modern engineers. And they did all of this in record time, often faster than many modern skyscrapers are built today. Let's move beyond pure admiration and ask some simple, practical questions. The construction of such a cathedral is first and foremost a matter of logistics. Millions of tons of stone had to be quarried somewhere. Where were these quarries? How were the stone blocks shaped with such precision without machines? But most importantly, how were they transported to the construction site?
Oh, they were doing with chisels and shit, bro. Get the fuck out of here, bro. Like,
Without a network of railways, without powerful trucks, moving even a single multi-ton block becomes a monumental operation, and hundreds of thousands of them were needed. Historical chronicles are deafeningly silent on these details. There are no records of massive transport routes, of the thousands of workers who needed to be fed, clothed, and housed.
I wonder why does it expose the knowledge of free energy in this world? I wonder why they won't reveal any information. And most of these blueprints, a lot of these churches, they don't even exist. Nobody knows how it even was built. Nobody knows how it was got there. Like, it's crazy. And people believe the lies they put on the Wikipedia. Like, it's crazy.
History asks
And we consider Wikipedia as a source of information. where anybody can edit, and then it's edited by the mainstream narrative. Is so mainstream narrative is so ubiquitously present in Wikipedia at all. Like they're using like AI and narratives, and they have the same names. Like I think there's a channel called My Lunch Break, and it's posts Wikipedia is as fraudulent as ever.
Asks us to believe that a civilization lacking basic technologies could, out of nowhere, create logistical chains rivaling modern ones in complexity. This paradox is too great to ignore, and it repeats itself from cathedral to cathedral, from castle to castle, all across Europe. History simply throws dates at us, and we are expected to accept them on faith. But what if these dates are just an attempt to fit inexplicable artifacts into a convenient but fabricated timeline? What if the Reims Cathedral and similar structures are not
The timeline is 100% fabricated. Like how they even verify these dates is crazy.
products of their time, but the legacy of something much greater? This thought seems incredible at first, but the deeper we delve into the details,
They have no blueprints, they have no architectural records, but somehow they figured out the date when it was built, when it was destroyed, like when it was caught on fire. Like it's crazy.
the more inconsistencies we find. The official version cracks under the weight of basic logic. The mystery of the cathedral is not just a question of construction technology. It is a question about the very nature of our history and what might have been hidden from us. And to get closer to the answer, we need to look at other strange patterns that accompany the history of these ancient buildings. There is one suspicious template that repeats so often it can no longer be considered a coincidence. This pattern involves fire and destruction, and it may
I was about to tell that if you see in a Wikipedia article and a church was caught on fire, and even like modern churches getting caught on fire, it's actually like a cover up for them to remove the evidence of this sacred geometry and sacred architect, evidence of free energy and technology. Like it's always a cover up when you think about church caught on fire, but nobody knows who the arson is. Like it's always a cover up.
be the key to understanding what really happened. And this key is hidden in one strange, obsessively recurring story: the story of fire. After analyzing the chronicles of hundreds of ancient buildings, we uncover a disturbing pattern. For nearly every great stone cathedral, there is a legend that it was built on the site of an older, humbler wooden church that was destroyed in a blaze. Reims Cathedral is no exception. We are told it was built on the ashes of its
Like Notre Dame, a lot of the churches always got on fire, and nobody knows who the arson is. With this in the digital age of cameras, nobody knows who burned it. It's totally impossible to find anyone who burned the churches.
predecessor, which burned down just a year before the new construction began. This scenario repeats dozens, if not hundreds of times.
And this is in every fucking history of every church, like every old world structure. It always got on fire. Like check Wikipedia, bro. Like every Wikipedia article about every old world structure, it caught on fire at some point in time. It just lies over same narrative, same lies over and over and again.
Across Europe, stone giants that can withstand the ages somehow constantly rise from the ashes. Isn't that a little too convenient? It feels like a pre-written template, a universal explanation inserted into any historical account to fill the gaping voids. Why would a stone building, capable of surviving for a millennium, need such a fiery backstory? This narrative device solves several problems for the official timeline. It explains why a massive construction project suddenly began on that spot, and it creates an illusion of continuity, linking an inexplicable masterpiece to an earlier, more primitive period. But from the standpoint of mathematical probability, such a number of random yet fateful fires, immediately followed by a construction boom, looks like an outright fabrication.
But how does like stone catch on fire? Like anybody who believes in this narrative are like stupid.
If the fire stories are just a facade, then who were the people we are told were the creators of these masterpieces? Official history names the architect of Reims Cathedral as Jean d'Orbais. But as soon as we try to learn more about this man, we hit a brick wall. Who was he? Where did he get his knowledge, which was clearly centuries ahead of his time? Where are his blueprints, his calculations, his architectural school, his students? None of it exists. His biography is a collection of vague assumptions and references to other projects, which only deepens the confusion. For example,
And you can actually see, the same AI names they actually use to, and they're attributed to like many different churches, like in a short span of time. The same person's building many different churches in a short span of time. Like it's all this complete bullshit narrative. Like you can see the same names used in different churches across the world. Like it's all like it's almost like it's written by AI.
he is credited with participating in the construction of buildings that were supposedly founded back in the 6th century. Then, 600 years later, he begins the construction of other churches. This creates the image not of a real person, but of a mythical character whose name was simply written into history to give authorship to an anonymous masterpiece. A logical question arises. Did he build it at all? Or did he simply find it, and his name, as a figure from a later and more understandable era, was attached to the ancient structure to somehow integrate it into the new timeline? Such phantom architects, whose existence is supported by virtually no real evidence other than the buildings themselves, are found throughout history. This is another crack in the foundation of the official version. So, a disturbing picture emerges. Buildings that are technologically inexplicable, suspiciously frequent stories of fires serving as their backstory, and enigmatic architects whose biographies do not stand up to scrutiny. All of this could be blamed on inaccurate chronicles or lost documents, if not for one thing. All these details are just circumstantial evidence. The real, crushing blow to the official story is not hidden in stone or ancient manuscripts. It's hidden in the numbers. In the very population data provided to us by historians and demographers themselves. There is one area where you cannot lie. One system that cannot be faked in the past, because it obeys strict laws. That is mathematics. Historians can invent any stories they want about fires and genius architects, but there's one thing you can't argue with: mathematics. And now, it will show us a truth that will leave you in shock. The time has come for the decisive experiment. We will set aside legends and assumptions and turn to the impartial language of numbers. Our method is simple and based on official, publicly available data. We will take population growth statistics from a period that is well documented, the last 200 to 250 years. Let's consider England, for example. Since the beginning of the 19th century, its population has grown from 9 million to over 65 million people. This is a colossal leap. We see similar dynamics in other countries. For instance, the population of Spain has increased by almost 20 million people in just the last 70 years. Now, using these growth rates, we will perform a reverse calculation, not into the future, but into the past. We will apply the very same mathematical model to see what the world's population should have been in those so-called Dark Ages. We will use their own numbers, their own mathematics, to check their own history. This simple arithmetic step leads to results that can only be described as a demographic bombshell. They completely shatter the familiar picture of the world that has been painted for us since school. Let's begin our countdown. Applying the recorded rate of population change, we see the numbers begin to shrink at a catastrophic rate. If we rewind time just 100 years from today, to the beginning of the 20th century, the world's population is no longer in the billions. But that's just the start. Moving further back into history, we cross critical thresholds. By 1886, according to our calculations, the entire planet would have had only about 928 million people. By 1817, just over 200 years ago, that figure drops to 314 million. This is already several times less than what official sources tell us, but we continue. By 1748, only 106 million.
Yeah, the official source doesn't make any sense, and a lot of these narratives, like they're with extremely small amount of population, they're building these huge churches and huge monuments and architects, and in the past, it's totally a lie. There were millions and millions of civilizations before us. There were like billions of people before us, but they got wiped out. It's always like a civilization reset every time.
People remain on the entire Earth. Imagine, that's the population of modern-day
Who's causing the civilization reset? God knows who, bro. Like
Japan, spread across all continents. And now, let's take a truly massive step back. The year 1610. According to our mathematical model, based on official growth rates, the world's population at that time would have been just 11.8 million people. That's fewer than live in Moscow alone today. And this is during an era when, we are told, the great geographical discoveries were in full swing, empires were being built, and large-scale wars were being fought. But the most devastating blow from our mathematics lands on the very era with which we began our investigation. We are approaching the 1200s, the time when the foundations of the greatest Gothic cathedrals, including Roms, were supposedly being laid. Continuing our calculations with the same relentless logic.
And have you looked into the conspiracy of catacombs? It's kind of crazy. Like, we believe the catacombs were built upon, bones of martyrs and shit. Like, but like, if you went through that rabbit hole, it's saying that they were like actually sacrificed for some ritual and shit. Look, it's crazy. Like, make a separate video on that, bro. Like, it's crazy. Like, there's like a inscription on a certain church that says, we were here and we died, and the same thing will happen to you. Like, it's crazy, bro. Like, I'll make a video on that. I'll show you guys what's that's all about.
We arrive at a shocking, unthinkable.
It's always some kind of like a strange civilization reset. Like,
result. At the very moment when, according to historians, thousands upon...
And I believe this happened in like the start of the 1800s. Like, that's when the civilization, our civilization reset actually happened.
On thousands of people across Europe were enthusiastically building stone masterpieces, the entire population of planet Earth would have been about 18,700 people. Let me repeat that. 18,700 people. on the entire planet. That is the population of a small provincial town or a modern residential complex. And this is where the official story collides with mathematics and shatters into pieces. We are told that hundreds of architectural marvels were being erected around the world at this time. But who built them? If the entire planet had fewer people than attend a single football match today? Who quarried and moved millions of tons of stone? Who developed the complex architectural plans? Who fed these builders? Mathematics gives a clear answer. It's impossible. The historical version, which claims that a virtually non-existent population was more advanced in construction than we are today, collapses under the pressure of a simple arithmetic calculation. If the people of that time could not have physically built this, then the main and most important question arises: who did? Mathematics has destroyed the alibi of official history. It has shown us that in the 13th century, there was simply no one to build the cathedrals. This conclusion, however shocking, leaves us with only one logical alternative. If these buildings were not built by the people of that time, then they were built by someone else, long before them. The answer, as radical as it may seem, is that we are dealing with the legacy of a previous, far more advanced global civilization. The people of the Middle Ages and subsequent eras did not build these masterpieces from scratch. They found them, inhabited them, and perhaps tried to repair them. Ancient daguerreotypes and
It's so obvious.
photographs from the mid-19th century serve as silent witnesses to this version. In these images, we see the very same medieval cathedrals and ancient temples, but they do not look like new constructions. On the contrary, they are already standing there, ancient, majestic, often half-buried in soil, which speaks of a past cataclysm. Surrounding them is the primitive life of the 19th century, people in simple clothes, horse-drawn carts. The contrast between the technological level of the people in the photos and the architectural perfection of the buildings is staggering. These are not photographs of construction, they are photographs of people reclaiming ruins. We are looking at a world recovering from something global, and these buildings are the silent artifacts of a bygone era, one that would later be called Tartaria, or given another name. But if this is the legacy of a single civilization, it must have common features, a recognizable signature left by the real builders. And it does. All over the world, from Europe to Asia, we find the same symbols on the facades of these ancient buildings. One of the most striking examples is the griffin, a mythical creature that official history scatters across different cultures. However, we see its depiction, rendered in a similar style, on buildings.
And the griffin is like in almost like every church sculpture, and griffin is like mythological creature that denotes some kind of good luck or some guardian or something good and shit, and it's present in every fucking sculpture in ancient churches, ancient temples, ancient mosques. Griffin is present there, and griffin is actually on the map of Tartaria, the supposed ancient civilization that's supposedly lost, or it's like a conspiracy, and the griffin is present on the map of Tartaria. It's crazy.
Separated by thousands of miles. For example, on an old building in Athens, captured in a photograph from the 1860s. These are not random coincidences. This is an architectural language, a unified code that proves these structures had a single cultural source. These symbols are like a signature left by a civilization that was later erased from the history books. We are told stories of disparate, primitive peoples who supposedly arrived at similar architectural solutions independently, but the facts speak to the contrary. Of the existence of a single global culture that possessed technologies we still cannot fully replicate today. All these buildings are links in the same chain, parts of a vast global system that we are not meant to know about. Visual evidence and recurring symbols support our theory, but our most powerful and irrefutable tool is mathematics. It has already shown us that the population in the 1200s was effectively zero, making any large-scale construction impossible.
Bro, you tell me they build this. Look at this sacred architecture. They build this chisels and shit, bro. It's crazy.
This conclusion alone overturns everything we thought we knew about the past. But if the math is right, it pushes us toward an even more frightening and fundamental conclusion. It points to a point of origin in the recent past, a moment when there were almost no humans on the planet. The thought is both fascinating and terrifying. It means that our current civilization is a very young phenomenon, and all of history before a certain point is either a fabrication or a misinterpreted chronicle of the previous world, the world of the true builders. We are on the verge of a discovery that could change absolutely everything. Our calculation for the 13th century exposed the impossibility of the official version. It was the stone that started an avalanche. But why stop there? If the mathematical model is correct, it should work as we go further, taking us deeper and deeper into the past. We've seen what it was like 800 years ago, but what about 1400 years ago? What lies hidden there, in the depths of time where historians are afraid to look with a calculator in hand? Let's not be afraid. Let's take our mathematical experiment to its logical, however shocking, conclusion. Let's calculate what date this countdown will lead us to, and see what lies at that final point. The answer may be more incredible than any speculation. We have brought our mathematical experiment to a critical point, exposing the absurdity of the official history of the 13th century. But we will not stop. Now, we will take the final step and gaze into the abyss that this calculation opens before us. Continuing our countdown with the same relentless rate of population decline, we race back through the centuries. After the mark of 1200 AD, where there were only 18,700 people on Earth, the numbers begin to melt away. The year 1000, 900, 800. With each step into the past, humanity becomes more and more ghostly. Its presence on the planet approaching a statistic.
Those are the periods, 500 to 1000. Like, history seems kind of like missing. Like, history seems like non-existent. Like, there's something major they actually like lying about. So obvious.
Statistical error. And then, we reach the threshold of the 600s AD. Mathematics, based on official demographic data, delivers its final, merciless verdict. In the year 600 AD, the population of the entire planet Earth would have been 3 people. This is not a metaphor or an exaggeration. It is the direct and inevitable result of a calculation based on the very numbers that historians themselves provide. We have reached the endpoint, a mathematical zero, beyond which there is nothing. This figure, 3 people on the planet, presents us with a fundamental choice, a fork in the road with 2 paths, each of which completely changes our understanding of the world. The first path is to take this calculation literally. This would mean that humanity as a species appeared sometime in the middle of the 7th century AD, that all of history before that moment, from ancient Rome and Greece to the Egyptian pyramids, is a fiction. This option is so absurd that it can be dismissed immediately, but that leaves us with only the second path. If the math doesn't lie, but its result is absurd, then the initial premise itself must be wrong. We have been assuming that human history is a continuous, smooth process of growth. But what if it's not? What if in the recent past there was a break in this timeline? This calculation means one thing. Very recently in our history, something colossal happened. A global event that almost completely wiped out the planet's population and erased the collective memory of the past. Our mathematical model breaks down because it is trying to look beyond the event horizon of this cataclysm, into the world that existed before it. This idea of a global cataclysm, of a great reset, is the one master key that fits every lock, opening all the doors we have been knocking on. If we assume that such an event occurred relatively recently, for example in the 18th century, around the symbolic date of 1776, then all the inexplicable paradoxes instantly fall into place. The incredible cathedrals and castles? They are not constructions of the Dark Ages, but the surviving heritage of a highly developed pre-cataclysm civilization. The lost construction technologies? They weren't lost in antiquity. They disappeared along with the world of their creators during the reset. The population mystery. The rapid population growth of the 19th and 20th centuries isn't a continuation of an ancient trend, but a demographic explosion of survivors, rebuilding their numbers from nearly zero. And the entire official history that we know is a chronicle written after the disaster. A chronicle designed to explain
That's so true.
the new world and to incorporate the incomprehensible ruins of the past, labeling them as primitive medieval.
And you can actually point out the inconsistencies in history itself. To show this, a lot of this history is actually made up.
Buildings and inventing vague legends of phantom builders for them. Therefore, all these cathedrals, castles, and palaces are not the legacy of primitive medieval people. They are the silent witnesses of a world that came before us, a world that was hidden from us.
These kinds of pillars, how it's like they were used to harness some kind of energy. Like, that's my personal theory and belief. And that's why these churches get burned. Like, say that they wanted to destroy these kinds of technology. Almost like it's used for harnessing ethereal, pulling energy straight from there, like free energy. Same thing Nikola Tesla talked about. That's what these pillars and ancient structures are for, like harnessing energy. That's why they're trying so like very hard to hide it. And the sacred geometry and the architect of the church itself, because that also points out that systems of free energy. That's why they're so hard on trying to knock it down.
They stand as irrefutable evidence that our civilization is not the first
Because we can't expose the truth of free energy. That will, destabilize the government itself.
on this planet, and that our history is much shorter and more tragic than we have been led to believe. The numbers and facts are right in front of you. They were always here, just waiting for us to pay it.
Break free and join the Awake, Free, and Ready community.
This is lost. Begin. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people what you don't want them to see. A world without rules and controls, without borders or boundaries. A world where anything is possible.
Cathedrals, churches, basilicas, mosques, and temples. Those grand
It almost like this were like some machines, like machines for harnessing energy. Like, you're gonna see also the healing frequencies. What is this harnessing healing energy? Some people like these were actually machines harnessing energy from thin air. Like, It's crazy. It even looks like some kind of like an old mechanical machine.
Structures in the heart of the cities and dot the countrysides of our realm. These fascinating works of art draw tourists in droves throughout the year. Perhaps you've been to a few and got a bit of history and took a few snapshots on your tour. But have you really taken a look at these grand and majestic
And
structures?
this is not in just churches exclusively. It's in every temple, Indian temples, different mosques. This evidence of free energy is present like everywhere. And sacred geometry, architecture is present everywhere throughout the world. If you see some structure, uh, a few thousand years old or a few hundred years old, like best believe it's made by some kind of advanced technology.
I mean, really taking a look. Whether it's Europe, Asia, North America, these beautiful feats of architecture and design are not what you've been led to believe. Join me as once again we jump down the rabbit hole and uncover the truth of what these structures of the old world were really made for. So buckle up and put your magic glasses on.
What are you gonna do? I am gonna get to the truth.
You'll be looking at the world with a new lens, and you may never see your reality in the same way again. Our first stop takes us to Rosslyn, Scotland, and the Rosslyn Chapel, not far from Edinburgh. I know this is only a church, but it is a micro version of many of the larger cathedrals. Rosslyn Church was allegedly built in 1446 by Sir William St. Clair, and is what history tells us is of a Roman Gothic design. It was said to have been in ruin and rebuilt several times. Here, I'll share with you some startling elements that are unique and fascinating. For that, we have to go inside. At first blush, it looks like a typical chapel on any tour brochure. However, it is up high beyond the arches, where the wonder truly lies. Within its 14 arches are stems, on which are these curious cubes and receptacles. In fact, there are over 215 of these cubes, but the wonder doesn't end there. Each cube has one of 13 unique geometric etchings, a carved series of lines and circles. Researchers realized that these were not random carvings at all, but the depiction of a very exact science, the science of cymatics, patterns created by vibration and frequency. In short, it is the geometric or physical expression of sound. This entire structure was created to be a harmonic focal point, to sing. Researchers were able to find the tone of the church, and they also believe that each cathedral has its own musical signature. Architecture is, in essence, frozen music, and music is liquid architecture. The architecture and music follow the golden ratio.
Yeah, that's 100% true. If you can observe and see the thematic patterns on the architecture itself, that just shows it is built by something else, not just fucking with chisels and shit.
The geometric blueprint in all of nature to express harmony. Now, do you believe a few tradespeople and peasants over 500 years ago just randomly came up with this idea and ran with it? Who are these amazing artisans that could create such a masterpiece? And what about these curious nodes in the arches? They look like they were some kind of tech to direct sound. Perhaps a therapeutic healing energy beam was created. Based on the architecture that far surpassed the intelligence of the period, could it be that these incredible buildings were not churches from the old world, but were repurposed by religion to hide their true utility? What if these cathedrals and churches and temples were in fact the great engines of the old world, using free energy tech of sound and
that's also kind of good theory.
Vibration, able to harness the power of the ether?
It is always free energy. Use to harness the power of ether. Like that is the reason why they're trying to hide it in the first place. If free energy is information available in public, governments always destabilized. The number one thing the government used to control is through energy. Like, they don't want to give that up, bro. Also, I think it will also lead to some kind of anarchy. That's why the existence of free energy will be never available to the public.
And transmute it into energy to not only power the city, but to beam out healing energy to the community.
Whoa.
The technology in the architecture is mind-boggling. From three-dimensional acoustic panels to pillars, beams, and arches that all follow sacred geometry, to such exacting specifications that make every inch of the structure part of the great machine. All aspects of it are connected and have a purpose. This level of structural mastery can't be matched with today's technology. And yet, we have been told it is only for worship, weddings, and funerals. Any harmonics and frequency are purely coincidental, and the design and craftsmanship is just ornamental and common for the time. Not a chance. These buildings were made for so much more. I invite you to look closely at the buildings with new eyes. See the glorious majesty, strength, and beauty in the design. Imagine this was the engine of a city of the old world.
Yeah, what is this OST?
Erased from a history that was more advanced than today. Imagine it was the heartbeat of a culture. Imagine the minds that brought it to life. But how was this done? Now, sadly, we don't have all the answers, but they did leave us clues. Knowing that sound, music, and vibration are universal, some of the most ornate and beautiful pipe organs could have been utilized to bring forth the resonance needed. Yeah, pipe organs as technology. The engines then magnified the tones and beamed it out through the portals. Oh, yeah, you thought they were just pretty circles of glass. Look closely, my friend. Remember, you have your new glasses on. These were not just circular windows made to make the building look nicer. No. Just like every aspect of these structures, these circles are portals. Their design is purposeful and exact. Back when they were used, there was no glazing. The glass was installed later, after the reset, when the churches took possession. Notice, they are schematic patterns, each design with a specific tone assigned to it. Are you starting to see something that was hidden in plain sight? When you see it for what it is, the structure takes on a beauty and wonder that humbles you at your core. What might these portals remind you of? Let your imagination take a walk. Now remember those stems with the cubes on the arches of the Rosslyn Chapel? Well, take a close look at what most spires are adorned with. Are they really spires for decoration on a house of God, and perhaps bragging rights for the tallest building in the land? Or is this Antiquitech, built to harness the energy of the ether?
Yeah, these are structures used to harness energy from thin air itself. You can harness energy from thin air, not just use the hydroelectric electricity that you actually pay your bills. Like, anyone can actually harness this electricity. It's crazy.
You have to admit that that is some incredible tech for something allegedly built centuries ago for worship and to just look pretty. But let's move further around our realm. This is a temple in Japan, near one of today's high-tech signal towers. Wait a minute, what's that on the roof? That's not purely ornamental. That's technology hidden in plain sight. The symmetry and design is even familiar today. There are structures where the focal point is designed to look like a pine cone, which is actually the symbol of our pineal gland. Critical in the function of your third eye activation.
Yo, I didn't even think about it. It does look like the pineal gland.
And higher levels of consciousness. When you look at the beautiful architecture with new eyes, it's hard to see a place of worship, but instead that of a power plant or energy center. As much as organized religion took over the identity of these old world structures, humanity was getting more and more advanced and connected. It was getting more and more difficult to hide the truth of these engines and the true magic and mystery they hold. The system then created a plan to erase the history. Check out my videos, Stolen History and Leveled Cities, for more details on that. I'll post a link in the notes. What the controllers did to erase the history was through wars to destroy the evidence of the old world. If they couldn't completely destroy it, they would burn it down and blame it on an accident.
It's always some kind of fire that actually destroyed, but they intentionally set this building on fire itself. It's so obvious at this point.
And in later years, have you noticed that many old world buildings have gone through extensive renovations, in some cases completely shrouded in scaffolding for months, if not years? And sadly, the renos are not about bringing it up to code, but systematically removing what was left of the old world tech and dropping the frequency of the harmonics in the process, from a healing energy to a hurting energy. Yes, the Luciferian cult does not want us to have any access to the old world wonder and power.
Hey, there's some kind of Luciferic satanic cult. Who's in charge of our, wall garments itself?
Today, most of the skyline looks as majestic as ever, with these glorious remnants of the old world. However, they are now just there for show. Their soul stripped and removed decades or centuries ago. Their secrets and their lore have long faded from a world too busy to even notice. However, as humanity awakens, the mystery and magic of their spirit will live on. Perhaps one day we will be blessed to hear the song from the engines of the old world made new again.
This is a pretty good channel, bro. Hey, Wake Free and Ready, subscribe to them. Yeah, I also got one more video to show you guys.
Welcome to Hidden History. In this episode, we will discuss the cathedrals, the churches and chapels of the Old World Empire. Cathedrals, churches and chapels were once used for other purposes, alongside with the worshipping of the Christ awareness in Great Tartaria and the Old World Empire, because each of the cathedrals, churches and chapels absorbed the boundless telluric electricity from the ether through domes, needles, spirals and steeples. In the initial days of cathedrals, churches and chapels, they were used as healing temples, where the congregation in Great Tartaria and the Old World Empire would enjoy using songs, chanting, musical instruments and entertainment. Additionally, the cathedrals, churches and chapels were used to biologically and medically restore...
And what are these things actually for healing? What are they even healing? Are they just healing, to purify consciousness? Or there's something deeper into them? Like, it's so crazy how much, the bold garments are trying to hide. There's so much technology that can help with, a lot of diseases and all this shit. Like, and it's just like, so... I'm just sad at this point how much they're actually hiding, how much they can actually help humanity. But they want to just keep in this constant state of suffering.
Optimize health. In most of the cathedrals, churches and chapels, there are metal bells that emit ultrasound frequencies.
Yeah, especially church bells. The ancient narrative of this was the church bells was around to ward off, demons and shit, like evil spirits and shit. Like, that's why it's a church bell. But now they remove church bells because it's a public nuisance at this point. That's what the mainstream says. It's so crazy, like...
of at least 25,000 hertz. When the congregation, parishioners or laity are exposed to such kinds of sound or frequencies, it then increases the biological resilience of humans by enhancing and optimizing the immune system. The spiral pathway of the sound wave then destroys most sickness by harmonizing the cells of human beings. The sound of the metal bells in the cathedral, churches and chapels activates the microleptons, which are the ultralight particles. These remove the isotopes harmful to biological health, creating harmony in the genetics and the cells of the body. It was very well known that during times of mass sickness and disease, the bells of cathedrals, churches and chapels would ring all day long. Every part of the ecclesiastical architecture that defines the features of cathedrals, churches and chapels was used to enhance these frequencies of the congregations in these buildings of the Old World Empire. When it comes to each of the architraves on the entrances to cathedrals and the spires, these features were designed to absorb the telluric electricity from the ether. The geometry design on the floors of these healing temples were interconnected and somehow increased the amount of ether energy which resonated into the cathedrals, churches and chapels by evenly distributing the resonant telluric electricity, much of which became stored in the capacitors in the healing temples. So this is why such cathedrals, churches and chapels have angled features and geometric patterns that were designed in a way to fully optimize genetic health with pulsating somatic patterns that were formed because of the ecclesiastical architecture that defines the cathedrals, churches and chapels. The most earliest evidence of a cathedral is listed in the book called Description of England that was published in 1587 and written by the English clergyman and historian William Rupert Harrison. From what has been conveyed, the etymology of cathedral is said to come from the Greek language word cathedra, meaning chair, seat or bench. However, the word cathedra can also mean exalted seat occupied by men of eminent rank or influence. The Greek word was used in translation of the Old Testament and New Testament from the Bible. When it comes to its usage in classical Latin, the word cathedra began to mean a teacher or professor's chair. The word in Latin came to be used in the phrase ecclesia cathedralis, meaning church of a bishop's seat. The unique labyrinths of the classical Greeks, the geometric patterns, and the stonework floors of cathedrals, churches, and chapels produce an electrical magnetic radiation tuned into 7.83 Hz, which is the resonating vibration of planet Earth, which is also the frequency of the human brain. These various cathedrals, churches...
Yo, that's crazy. Are you talking about the Schumann's resonance? Like, what are they? Yo, it's crazy, bro. Like, the things they actually had, bro. Like,
and chapels were designed to be massive Schumann resonators and use the frequencies
yeah, I told you about that.
7.83 Hz, 14.3 Hz, 20.8 Hz, 27.3 Hz, and 33.8 Hz. Such frequencies connect with the ionosphere of planet Earth. It is these resonances which human beings need to fully connect to and continue to access whenever they want, as they are part of the planet's Earth frequency field. In 1787, the famous German physicist called Ernest Florenz Friedrich Chladni wrote the discovery.
I'm just so mad that so much information is actually lost to us, and there are things like this that can actually help your consciousness. It's crazy.
On the theory of sound, and described how sound can be made visible by putting sand particles in his pipe organ. When sound waves are emitted through water, the sound waves can be recorded and each becomes a somatic pattern in the physical world. When we look at these somatic patterns, each of them looks very similar to the geometric shapes that are used in the cathedrals, churches, and chapels. So the combination of frequencies interacts with the architecture of the cathedrals, churches, and chapels and forms huge frequency fields that could restore the biological health of the congregations, parishioners, or laities in these healing temples. The oldest cathedral on planet Earth is in the cityscape of Var-Bushvad in western Armenia. The Echi Mirzan Cathedral was apparently built in 483 AD, but these healing temples would date back a lot further and were built on geomagnetic ley lines. We must note how Armenia is right next to Georgia and next to the Islamic Republic of Turkey. Before the repurposing of these healing temples, the rose windows did not contain silicon dioxide or glass and instead contained quartz crystals. So when the photons came through the window, they emitted certain wavelengths of restorative luminescence. And when...
Damn, that's crazy, bro. The amount of technology, like... right through the windows. Yo, that's crazy.
Combined with the choral singing and chanting, the congregations, parishioners, or laity of the Old World Empire were medically restored and cured of any sickness. During the early medieval period and the Dark Ages...
yeah, because sunlight consists of healing properties, and when they're filtered through the cymatic patterns, it just results in healing light. That's so... like ingenious and crazy. Like,
there was a repurposing of many cathedrals, churches, and chapels. Some of these buildings were converted by the Roman Catholic Church and the Vatican City State. However, certain other kinds of cathedrals, churches, and chapels were constructed by the Roman Catholic Church across mainland Europe. It has been proven that human beings that are exposed to music in the frequency range of 70 decibels to 85 decibels produced a higher number of viable red blood cells than if exposed to silence. The lower frequencies of music gives oxygen to the hemoglobin molecules than faster frequencies. And this was the case in the healing temples of Great Tartaria and the Old World Empire. So the lower frequencies mimic the heartbeat and cause the hemoglobin in human beings to uptake the dissolved oxygen in the blood. So through the night, while resting in what the human beings in Great Tartaria and the Old World Empire called incubation sleep, these musical frequencies restored and helped to self-regulate their bodies. So as the bodies of human beings are made of around 60% water, music will have a huge influence on the body. Lower frequencies will boost the oxygen in the blood of human beings and boost the response of the immune system. Along with this, each of the ornate metallic pipe organs and the choral singing or chanting at lower and higher frequencies within the cathedrals, churches, and chapels repeatedly formed somatic vibration that could optimize the congregations, parishioners, or laity that were inside. When you look at the choir stalls within cathedrals, churches, and chapels, and the intricacy built into the design, was this architecture somehow vibrationally working with the choirs and musical instruments played in these healing temples? The earliest indications of the metallic pipe organ goes back to 350 BC, which was the hydrolis, or water organ, or hydrolis. That was a Greek water-powered organ, or hydraulic organ played by the use of compressed valves. The resourceful classical Greeks also called it organon, or instrument. But from the 31st of January 1846 and onwards, all this information was suppressed and organs were detuned, changing the frequency of these restorative tools. It is by no mistake that every building from the Old World Empire and Great Tartaria contains a metallic pipe organ. And this isn't always in cathedrals, churches and chapels. You have the Royal Albert Hall, Alexandra Palace and Blenheim Palace in the United Kingdom. But all over planet Earth, these edifices contained organs. We can see with the chronovisor of the Roman Catholic Church and the Vatican City State, which is a device that can be used to look into the past and uses the metallic pipe organs.
Yeah, I don't know about that chronovisor shit. I think that's kind of fake.
According to what the chronovisor found, it was a kind of acoustic-based occult technology in Great Tartaria and the Old World Empire. When you look into the historical narratives about these cathedrals, churches and chapels, along with other relatable buildings, you will begin to see glitches, redacted information and deleted words in the building records, construction times, what the purpose was of many of these cathedrals.
Yeah, looking at the actual history of every cathedral in Wikipedia, you can see some things made by AI narratives, like caught in a fire. Every fucking churches to get anything was caught in a fire, then they rebuilt, then there was caught in a fire again. Just constant narrative, editing and wish-washing and shit. It's crazy.
Churches and chapels, and what they actually were. What was the true purpose of these buildings? Were they...
I 100% believe these churches were made of advanced technology, and these were harnessing free energy machines from the ether, from the thin air itself. They were harnessing energy, and it's so sad this technology is kind of lost to us, because the mainstream rulers don't want us to know about it. And it's so obvious it was used for some kind of a healing function to our consciousness. Damn, that's sad we don't have this kind of technology.
Healing temples. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please subscribe.
In churches, rose windows were meant to explain universal laws of the cosmos and the psyche, according to the medieval thinker. So
yeah, and this was explaining hidden the symbolism of the rose window.
Religious or not, after watching this video, you may start to see rose windows a bit differently. Hi, my name is Sandra, and welcome to Chasing Gods, where we deconstruct symbols and myths and find out how they connect to science. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe. And if you value my content, consider becoming a Patreon supporter and help the channel grow.
This is girl AI,
link in the description box.
Speaks like AI.
On this episode, you're going to learn a brief history of the rose window, its fundamental themes, and how to analyze each of these themes by decoding some examples of rose windows. The traditional rose window, the one with geometrical shapes spanning out from the center and made of stained glass, blew up in Gothic France. We're talking about the 12th and 13th century, particularly in and around Paris. From there, stereotypical rose windows spread throughout the world, starting with neighboring countries such as England, Spain, and Italy. Rose windows didn't appear out of thin air. Its ancestor may have been the oculus, a simple circular hole without glass or design, and it's typically situated on the roof of ancient Roman religious buildings, such as the famous Pantheon, originally built in the 1st century BC. The oculus was meant to let the air, light, and rain travel through. It could have been fashioned into other shapes, but the circle was a favorite in houses of worship, as it's a symbol of universal perfection across the world, as early as humans could express themselves visually. The ancient Chinese, ancient Egyptians, Sumerians, Hindus, and Native Americans all venerated the circle. By the 9th century, oculi, plural for oculus, started to evolve, and their traceries began to be used for designs. The designs would get increasingly complex and began to take the shape of a rose, hence the term rose window, which didn't take its name until the 17th century. The windows absorbed cultural styles of the regions they were built in. Great examples are the Troya Cathedral in Italy and the San Lorenzo Church in Spain, which bear clear Islamic influence due to the Moor occupation of the 8th century. This is also the time that the oculi began to evolve, which could indicate the possible origin of the designs inside the oculus altogether. By the 12th century, the archetypal rose window, whose style is known as resonant, was born in France. The most famous one is that of Notre Dame de Paris. From this resonant style are born many more, such as the curvilinear and the flamboyant. From here on, rose windows would continue to spread to the rest of the world. They underwent periods of destruction, renaissance, and modernization. They got restored over and over again and still live on today.
You can actually see the modern architecture is so inferior compared to the old world structures. It's so inferior, it's so ugly when compared to the old world structures.
Today as religious relics. So what is it about rose windows that
just show that old world structures are built with intent and blood, sweat, and tears, while modern structures just based on some architecture to to save time misuse for cutting profits, making a profit margin. It just shows the proof is in the pudding itself, and the architecture is so inferior.
fascinated the medieval world, which many of us have no clue of. See, for its creators, the classical rose window represents a range of fundamental concepts. They are light, circle, cycle, microcosm-macrocosm relationship, order, and geometry. These concepts are expressed through the rose window's shape, material, stained glass images and color, and exterior tracery design. Let's talk about light and how the rose window displays it both physically and symbolically. First, there's the outside light that seeps into the cathedral through the rose window. As it does, the stained glass turns it into colorful lights. This gives the allure that through light comes the universe. This idea is fundamental to the medieval Christians because light is one.
And not just that, because we explained earlier, like space is built upon like healing cymatics. So when light passes through that, it's there.
The first things that the biblical God created. Virtually all religions and myths have a creation narrative. In them, light is not necessarily the first thing that's created. However,
When light passes through the cymatic, it results in some kind of healing light. When they descend on people, like it's crazy. This kind of technology is embedded in the church window.
It's often associated with high-ranking creator deities such as Zeus, Ahura Mazda, Ra, and Brahma. The ancient association of light with creation is likely due to the importance of the sun's life-giving energy to the planet. They aren't far off from modern science view on the creation of the universe. According to today's leading theory, the universe began with a big bang of energy. From that
a bunch of horse shit.
initial burst eventually came the many galaxies of stars and planets. The idea of one form of energy producing a myriad of things is reflected in the ancient Taoist saying, the 10,000 things, which draws our attention back to the rose window. From white light comes the many colors that exist. Medieval rose window creators have also shown the importance of light through symbolism using Christ. Christ represents light. Christ or God will be put at the center because according to Christians, it is through them that everything exists. In other words, through light, everything exists, creating a universe. Note that there are many non-creator deities who also represent light in world myths, such as Sol and Apollo, both of which have been associated with Jesus. To the medieval thinker, the universe, or God, is a circular shape. This is illustrated with the image of God drawing a circle with a compass. A popular saying among theologians at the time was that God is an infinite sphere whose circumference is nowhere and whose center is everywhere. This expression is found in the Liber Philosophorum, a Latin booklet consisting of definitions of what God is. Today, the shape of the universe is a topic of great debate, but there are three leading theories. The universe has a positive curvature, which can make it spherical. The universe has a negative curvature, which makes it have a saddle shape. Or the universe is completely flat. The jury is still out. Regardless, the circle has been a sacred shape to many ancient religions. It's often referred to as a wheel. Another name for the rose window is a wheel window.
And we know the answer to that question.
For example, the Norse
Those
sun
who know, those who know.
wheel, the Buddhist Dharma wheel, and the Native American medicine wheel, which are all associated with light and sun. The shape of the sun, as well as the cycles associated with it, could have greatly contributed to the medieval idea of the universe and God as a circle. The circular shape of the rose window also conveys cycle, and that all things are subject to the eternal cycle of the universe. Planets, time, seasons, even personal life events. A well-known medieval allegory seen on rose windows is that of Fortuna and her wheel. Fortuna is the goddess of fate, and she controls the wheel of fate. There are smaller figures around the wheel. That's actually one figure whose stature changes depending on where the wheel guides it. At the top, the person reigns, then he dips into misfortune and makes his way back up again. The allegory wishes to express the inescapable cycle of fortune and misfortune, good and bad, victory and losses, for all humans with no exception. There are rose windows that show the embodiment of vices and virtues along with the zodiac signs. Some believe that it illustrates the ongoing struggle of the soul throughout daily life, also known as psychomachia. Others believe that it's a reflection of the medieval belief in astrology, where the position of the stars and planets at the time of a person's birth influences their personality, which includes vices and virtues. But
For this much amount of thought and like intention behind architecture is crazy also.
I like to believe that it represents the cycle of vices and virtues that societies as a whole go through. How do you read this combination of symbolism? Let me know in the comments below. So cycles exist everywhere, which leads us to the next point. The late Middle Ages are very keen on the subject of macrocosm and microcosm relationship, which is famously expressed as above, so below. In essence, the human body and the affairs of humans are like a universe only on a smaller scale. This relationship is frequently found on rose windows.
Reason why that doesn't make sense to you because you believe in the heliocentric model and that doesn't make sense to you, but our own body is like a universe if you think about it. Universe, like the heavens and everything, heavens, hell, everything's like a counterpart to our own body. Like the head represents the heaven and the lower parts represent, animalistic thinking, passionate pursuit of things. It is a microcosm, micro and macrocosm relationship. Like our and whole body is like a reflection of the entire universe. That's why it said, man is created in the image of God. Like
those as the 12 constellations in the sky versus the 12 labors of the year. Constellations are a group of stars that have been named based on the patterns they form, and there are 88 recognized constellations. The 12 constellations that form the zodiac are those that the sun appears to pass through in a circular path from the perspective of the Earth, which orbits the sun once a year. Constellations of the sky are parallel to the labors of the year. The time it takes the Earth to go through those 12 constellations is a year, which is also divided into 12 months, each represented by the labor that is associated with that month. Order and hierarchy are popular themes in rose windows, especially with Christian narratives. Christ would be at the center, and from him emanates the Christian themes. Often, it's the Virgin Mary at the center. From her emanates the life of Jesus. The shape of the circle helps give the idea of a sequence. In some windows, like this one at the Cathedral, non-Christian elements are combined to add meaning. Zodiac signs, expressing time, the heavens, and human affairs, are seen surrounding Christ, indicating that his divinity rules the entire cosmos. Sometimes rose windows only display pagan iconographies or representations of elements. Philosophy is a popular figure in rose windows. This Greek-derived word literally means love of wisdom. In this rose window at the Long Cathedral, philosophy, placed at the center, is an attempt to show that the mind is at the center of all. Education was crucial. The medieval erudites believed that in order to elevate the mind, the men, or societies, must be proficient in the 7 liberal arts. This is expressed by philosophy at the center being surrounded by the personification of each liberal art: grammar, rhetoric, dialectic or reasoning, music, arithmetic, geometry, astronomy. The Cathedral of Laon adds medicine to make it more complete. Lastly, we have geometry, the expression of mathematical and cyclical patterns that occurs in the heavens as it occurs below it. The rose window, full of geometrical patterns, is ultimately the expression of the universe. In fact, all the themes that we've spoken of, light, circle, cycle, micro and macrocosm, order, and geometry, all have to do with the universe, the cosmos. Some patrons of rose windows have even wanted to encapsulate all that makes up the cosmos into a single rose window, such as the Lausanne window, meshing in orderly fashion the years, seasons, months, winds, heavens. The need to explain the universe is one of humanity's strong impulses. All cultures, at one point or another, are driven to pack their philosophical and cosmological views into a geometrical shape. The ancient Chinese do so with their yin-yang symbol, the Muslims with their geometrical art on their mosques. In medieval Europe, this is done through the rose window. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you next time.
yeah, it's the amount of intention behind a rose window, like incorporating 12 zodiacs, vices and virtues, the microcosmic aspect of things. It's so crazy. So that's about it, bro. Like, just like and sub, and just like and sub for if you want more conspiracy style videos.